Before we begin our presentation today, each of us will what their own explain their own names and their student ID. On behalf of our team, we'd like to greet you all on a Maori. Our presentation today based on tourism. The question that we're working on is on our limited content, which is the reason why tourism has become such an important source of income and employment for many Pacific Island countries. Second one is the COVID-19 pandemic to lead to a shift away from tourism towards other means of livelihood. The direction words that we working on with is to explain and how likely is. Before I start on my core reading one, my name is Anna Pita. My student ID is S112136888. Okay, tourism. First, I will explain what tourism is. As we usually know, tourism is place or people will usually gain more profit from it or land used to develop their own livings. From the core reading one, the in where people can use to gain more money from it or use their land to to spread to gain more interesting on other people from different countries. Jay Cornell mentioned from the core reading one that the important issues on tourism is social, economic, and international political implication of this development. The sites most affected by the collapse of tourism have all been in the Pacific because of the loss of transport connection with source countries. Despite COVID-19 have had minimal direct local impact. How likely is in every ocean and sea tourism increasing the basis of economic of most islands and island states has been particularly devastated by COVID-19. The virus has had a massive impact on the economics of small islands developing states for a range of reasons relating to a production, trade, and transport, and no economic sector has been more affected than tourism. This article shows that the changes that have occurred as the result of the coronavirus shock in three islands states and have been particularly affected almost entirely indirectly because of border closures and examines the dynamic social, economic, and international political implication of this development. That's all from the core reading one. Now I hand over to my friends here to explain the core reading two.
Before I continue on, my name is Basa and my student ID is S11212890. From the core reading 2, the reason why tourism has become such an important source of income and employment for many Pacific Island countries. According from core reading 2, which is small island developing states in a post-pandemic world, challenges and opportunities of climate action by statistics and research, and it's conveyed the most importance of tourism in Fiji for earning more income. As we can see in this reading, in, invest, emphasized that the way of income from tourism. When the border reopened in October 2020, after the COVID-19 pandemic, and it can earn more income from the tourists because it started to arrive in this island. The second question is how likely is the COVID-19 pandemic to lead to a shift away from tourism toward other means of livelihood? From this poor reading by Lee in 2022, it said that during the COVID-19 pandemic, most of the Fijians that they work in tour, they returned to their home island. But not only the COVID-19 pandemic happened, including the tropical cyclone and the drought, and they closed their borders from tourists. In my own understanding from these quotes, from the three issues that happen in Fiji, it can affect the Fijian life because they can't earn more money from the tourists because they closed their border from the COVID-19 pandemic and from the tropical cyclone and the drought. It destroyed many dwellings and most food gardens in Fiji. That's all from me, and I give the time to the next call reading.
To continue on, my name is Kiribati and my student's ID is S11213587. So in core reading 3, I'm going to discuss two part of its questions with you, which is explain the reason why tourism has become such an important source of income and employment for many Pacific Islands countries. The research is set in 5 tourism-reliant countries in the Pacific, namely Samoa, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, Cook Islands, and Fiji. But the countries are different in many ways. The point of comparison is that household all of the communities study depended on tourism for a significant part of their household income. Thus, we knew they faced many challenges to adapting to life without this income due to closed borders. Second, second is the COVID-19 pandemic to lead to a shift away from tourism towards other means of livelihood. Tourism dependent communities in the Pacific have served significant financial difficulties during the COVID-19 pandemic due to closed borders and the loss of tourism based income calendar 2020. In our research, over 73 of respondents surveyed in mid-2020 said they had experienced a major decline in household income, a significant figure given that 60% of respondents were from households that relied it relied on tourism for over half of the total income. Significance itself in 2020. That's all.
My name is Kobawa Takais, and my student ID is S11214517. To be continued with the next reading that I get from the book entitled The Pacific Island by Moses Rappaport that can help us to understand more about tourism. And it also can help us to answer our question on question 6, which explain the reason why tourism has become such an important source of income and employment for many Pacific Island countries. And the second is how likely is the COVID-19 pandemic to lead to a shift away from tourism toward other means of livelihood. The, according to the my quote that I get from this book, which the first one is while nations throughout the region are benefiting from tourism industry. There is no question that the economic potential of the industry is not being met. And the second is the direct flow of money from visitors to the business that make up the hotel industry and are vital to income and job creation. Both quotes are clearly explain how important or how benefiting from tourism through the region. As it's clearly shown in the second quote, when the which is the flow of money and flow of money are from visitors and tourists. For example, when the tourists came to our country, they must spend a lot of their money. They must find a better place to stay, such as hotels. Therefore, hotels owners must set up people who are not employed as their employees. That is how tourism is the most important source of income and employment for many Pacific Island countries. It can create a job for local people who are not employed, and so on. To continue to the next question, which is our last question, how likely is the COVID-19 pandemic to lead a shift away from tourism towards other means of livelihood? As we know, the COVID-19 is the most common issue all over the world. Most of the country are affected by the COVID-19 and also affected the tourism industry and make a shift from tourism because COVID-19 is spread very fast because it's spread by the air that we breathe and it's the most dangerous disease. It's killed over 1 million people across the world. When one country was affected by the COVID-19, what should the other country who communicate with this country do? They must close their borders for their people's safety from COVID-19. From that, it's affected the tourism industry because the borders was closed. There is no visitors and tourists to come. Then motels industry are not making income, and employees are become unemployed. That is how it led to make a shift from tourism to other means of livelihood. And that is stated in the open quote that I get from this book, which is the demise of the airline led to the loss of nearby 2,000 jobs. That's all. That's all from me.
Okay, I'm Elizabeth Stag and my student ID is 11213439. Referring from the whole reading,
that I choose from the library, which is reopening the Hawaii tourism economy in the age of 19 COVID-19. So, in the age of COVID-19, and it conveys the importance of tourism for earning income and employment for the Pacific of Hawaii. It mentioned when tourists arrive on Hawaii, and it can develop this Pacific from earning more money and many employment to produce more production on this country. How likely, second question, how likely is the COVID-19 pandemic to lead shift away from tourism toward other means of livelihood? The whole reading it mentioned is Governor X announced in March 2020 of a mandatory 14 quarantine. Incoming passengers was the key policy for, for restored health of Hawaii resident population. As, as it stopped the inflow of tourists and returning residents from continents who were potentially infected with COVID-19. But the 14-day quarantine also had the radical effect of reducing tourism arrivals by 99%, along with the WS health concerns. The stage in Hawaii's cases is incredibly problematic for our economy can know that it means for the livelihood of its people, and also why we open borders for arriving tourists to this country, and Governor Ixaura announced of using masks and making a distancing to with communicating others. That's all from our group members, and thank you for your listening and time.